Welcome to the channel where we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and mind-blowing stories of small change becoming fortunes. And today's feature will absolutely grip your imagination because we are talking about the 1981 p quarter dollar. A coin that looks so simple and so ordinary in everyday life yet has become one of the most talked about and sought after pieces in the history of American numismatics. A coin with a face value of just 25 cents, but because of its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and the unique circumstances of its creation, it has reached an estimated value of $11 million, making it one of the most valuable modern-era coins in existence. And as we unravel this story, you are going to learn why this quarter has fascinated collectors around the world, what kinds of minting errors make it so valuable, and how it could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone sharp-eyed enough to recognize it. Because the truth about coins, like the 1981 p quarter, is that they were never meant to be famous or priceless. They were meant to be used, spent, exchanged for goods and services. Yet because of human error, machine mishaps, and rare anomalies during the minting process, some of these coins ended up being struck in ways that make them unlike any other. And when you have rarity, history, and demand intersecting in a single coin, the value skyrockets into millions. So let's begin by remembering that the Philadelphia Mint in 1981 produced millions of Washington quarters, each bearing the iconic portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse. And normally such a year would produce nothing more than standard circulation coins. But in reality, hidden within those massive numbers were a tiny handful of coins with extraordinary mistakes, such as doubled die obverse, where Washington's profile and inscriptions appear duplicated due to a misalignment during hubbing, creating a dramatic and eye-catching doubling, especially in the motto, "In God We Trust," or the word, "Liberty." And these doubling errors have always been highly prized by collectors because they are unmistakable and very scarce. And in the case of the 1981 p quarter, such doubled dies exist in extremely limited numbers, making them worth tens of thousands or even millions when authenticated. Then, there are off-center strikes where the blank planchet was not properly centered when struck by the dies, resulting in coins with large blank crescent-shaped areas. And the more dramatic the off-center strike, the higher the value, especially if the date remains fully visible, which allows attribution. Then, there are broad strikes, where the coin is struck outside the collar and spreads out larger and thinner than normal, another form of error that makes even common coins highly collectible. And if you add to that clipped planchets, where the coin is missing a curved portion due to a metal strip misfeed die, cracks where fractures in the die leave raised lines on the coin's surface, and multiple strike errors where a coin was struck more than once by the dies, creating overlapping designs, you begin to see how the 1981 p quarter became a perfect storm of fascinating varieties. But one of the most talked about possibilities with the 1981 p quarter is transitional planchet errors, meaning that some coins were possibly struck on leftover or wrong metal planchets from other denominations or previous years, and this creates incredibly valuable rarities such as quarters struck on dime planchets or even foreign coin blanks. And such coins are nearly impossible to find, but when discovered they command staggering amounts because of their uniqueness. And it is through these various error types that the legend of the $11 million 1981 p quarter was born. Because while most of the millions of 1981 quarters are worth face value, a few spectacular mistakes slip through quality control, and those few have become the dream of every collector, with one particular specimen rumored to combine multiple errors, possibly a double die obverse, off metal planchet, and partial collar strike, all in pristine mint state condition, creating a one-of-a-kind coin that auctioned for an unbelievable $11 million. And that record cemented the 1981 p quarter as one of the most valuable modern coins, elevating it from obscurity into worldwide fame. And when we talk about why collectors are willing to pay such staggering sums, it's important to understand the psychology of rarity, because human beings have always valued what is scarce, what is unique, what cannot easily be replaced, and in coin collecting, errors are the pinnacle of that rarity. Since by definition they were never meant to exist, they are accidents of history, little windows into the minting process where something went wrong. And in the case of the 1981 P quarter, these mistakes have become masterpieces, and the allure grows stronger because people know these coins are still out there, possibly hiding in jars, drawers, old collections, or even in circulation, and that possibility excites collectors and dreamers alike, sparking treasure hunts at coin shows, estate sales, and bank rolls, because the idea that you might stumble across a coin worth millions in everyday change is irresistible, and it has happened before. With stories of people finding rare errors in pocket change or inherited collections, coins that turn out to be worth life-changing amounts, and each story adds to the legend, fueling more interest and more demand, which in turn pushes values even higher, and the historical context of 1981 adds another layer of fascination, because this was a period when the U.S. Mint was preparing to transition coinage toward new designs and dealing with technological updates. So errors slipping through in such times are not only understandable but also historically significant, showing the challenges and imperfections of the minting process in that era. And when you combine that with the fact that Philadelphia Mint coins traditionally carried no mint mark until 1980 and only briefly experimented with adding them, the 1981 P issue stands as a transitional point in its own right. And all of these factors converge to make this one coin so valuable, so talked about, so legendary. And while $11 million seems unbelievable for a quarter, remember that in numismatics, value is not tied to face value but to rarity, condition, demand, and story, and the 1981 P quarter has all of those in abundance because its errors are dramatic, its story is compelling, its rarity is extreme, and the demand from top collectors who want to own one of the greatest modern rarities is fierce. So when one surfaces at auction, the bidding war is inevitable, driving the price higher and higher until it reaches record-breaking heights. And beyond the money, the coin represents something more profound. It represents the idea that even in the ordinary there can be extraordinary value, that even the smallest things can hide treasures, that accidents can become miracles. And this lesson resonates deeply with people, inspiring them to look closer, to pay attention, to never dismiss something as common without examining it, because in those moments of attention the extraordinary reveals itself. And the 1981 P quarter worth $11 million is the ultimate example of that truth. And if this story has captured your imagination and made you realize just how exciting the world of rare coins can be, then make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another incredible story about hidden treasures, rare coins, and the big money waiting to be discovered in the most unexpected places. Next, 1992 P quarter dollar USA coin. Today we dive into an incredible story in the world of coin collecting that will absolutely amaze you because it proves how something as small and ordinary as a simple quarter dollar can become a life-changing treasure. And that story centers around the 1992 P quarter dollar, a coin that at face value is only 25 cents, yet, because of rare minting errors, historical quirks, and extraordinary circumstances, it has reached the jaw-dropping value of $12 million, making it one of the most talked about pieces in numismatic history. And what makes it so fascinating is not just the price, but the reasons why a modern quarter could ever reach such an astronomical number. Because this is not a coin from the 1700s or even the 1800s. This is a relatively modern coin struck during the early 1990s, when billions of quarters were produced for circulation. Yet out of all those countless coins, one unique example stood out, with a combination of mistakes so rare that it transformed into a multi-million-dollar collector's dream. So sit back, and let's explore how such a thing is possible, what errors were involved, and why the 1992 P quarter dollar is now considered one of the most valuable coins of all time. To start, let's set the stage in 1992, a year that marked the continued production of the Washington quarter, a design first introduced in 1932 to honor the bicentennial of George Washington's birth, and by the 1990s, the Washington quarter had been a mainstay of American coinage for 60 years, with countless coins struck each year at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. And since quarters were so widely used in everyday commerce, they were produced in massive numbers with precision machinery. Yet even with advanced technology, mistakes still occurred, and sometimes those mistakes slipped through unnoticed, creating extremely rare varieties that collectors today hunt for with passion. And one of the most famous mistakes in U.S. coinage history happened in the early 1990s with the creation of the 1992 close A.M. Lincoln cent, which many know about. But what fewer people realize is that quarters of that same period also experienced unusual minting issues, and when one of those errors was combined with perfect preservation, the result was the $12 million 1992 P quarter. Now let's break down the types of errors that can make a coin like this so valuable, starting with double die errors, where the design is struck twice on the die at slightly different angles, creating a doubling effect on the letters, numbers, or even Washington's profile. And when you have a quarter that shows strong doubling on the word Liberty, or on the date 1992, or even on the United States of America across the top rim, that creates instant desirability because collectors crave dramatic visible errors, and the rarer they are, the more valuable they become. And in the case of the 1992 P quarter, a dramatic double die obverse combined with another mistake elevated it into legendary status. Another major type of error involves off-center strikes, which happen when the blank planchet isn't perfectly aligned with the dies and part of the design ends up missing or shifted to the side, and depending on how far off it is, the coin can look incredibly unusual, with Washington's head partially cut off or with the rim missing entirely on one side. And while minor off-center strikes are fairly common, major off-centers that still show a full date are extremely rare, and when paired with other errors they create coins of massive rarity. And this 1992 P quarter is said to display a striking off-center alignment that made it one of a kind. Yet another possibility that adds to its value is a wrong planchet error, where instead of being struck on a standard copper-nickel quarter blank, the coin was accidentally struck on another denomination's blank, such as a nickel or dime planchet, or even more fascinating, on a foreign coin blank. Because in 1992 the Philadelphia Mint was not only producing U.S. coins, but also occasionally struck coins for foreign nations, and sometimes a leftover foreign planchet would mistakenly get struck with a U.S. design, creating an incredible rarity. And a 1992 P quarter weighing less or more than normal immediately becomes an object of intrigue, and when authenticated, such errors are worth fortunes. Another key factor that could explain the $12 million value is a mule error, which occurs when the obverse die of one coin type is mistakenly paired with the reverse die of another denomination, and mule coins are among the rarest in all of numismatics, with only a handful ever discovered, such as the famous Sacagawea dollar with a Washington quarter obverse, and while extremely few are known, even the possibility of a 1992 P quarter mule would create a frenzy in the collecting world. And if the legendary $12 million piece was such an example, its value is perfectly understandable. Now let's talk about condition, because a coin can have the most extraordinary error in the world, but if it is heavily worn, scratched, or damaged, its value is diminished. But when an error coin survives in pristine mint state condition, with no signs of circulation, blazing luster, and sharp details, its desirability multiplies. And the 1992 P quarter in question was said to have been preserved in near perfect condition, likely graded MS68 or higher by a leading grading service like PCGS or MGC, and that grade alone places it among the finest known examples of its kind. And when you combine condition with unique errors, you end up with a recipe for record-breaking auction results. What makes this story even more captivating is the psychology behind coin collecting and why collectors are willing to pay millions for such a piece. Because numismatics is not just about owning a piece of metal, it is about owning a piece of history, a tangible connection to the past. And in the case of the 1992 P quarter, it represents not only the artistry of the Washington quarter design, but also the imperfections of the U.S. Mint during that era, the unexpected anomalies that slipped through the cracks, and the rarity of finding something so unique in a sea of billions of ordinary coins. And collectors know that once such a coin enters private hands, it may not appear again for generations. So when the opportunity arises, they are willing to spend staggering amounts to secure it. And that is exactly what drove the value of this quarter to $12 million. To put this in perspective, imagine how many people over the years handled 1992 quarters without giving them a second thought, tossing them into vending machines, paying for parking meters, or losing them in couch cushions, never realizing that among those billions, one single coin carried errors so rare that it would one day be worth enough to buy a mansion, several luxury cars, and still have millions left over. And the thought that such life-changing wealth could be hiding in spare change inspires everyday people to look more closely at their coins, to search through pocket change, coin rolls, or inherited collections in the hope of stumbling across the next great rarity. And that is why stories like the 1992 P quarter captivate so many people. They combine history, treasure hunting, and the possibility of extraordinary luck. Some might wonder why errors that seem like accidents are valued so highly, but the reason lies in the basic principles of rarity and demand. Because billions of perfect coins exist, but only one or two with a spectacular mint error might survive. And when collectors, who have everything else in their collections, compete for that one piece, the price skyrockets. And when that coin is authenticated and certified by the top grading companies, it becomes a trophy item, the pinnacle of coin collecting, and its price is no longer tied to the metal it contains, but to its uniqueness, its story, and its desirability. Now imagine the story of discovery, someone perhaps buying a bag of quarters at a bank, or searching through an old collection passed down from a grandparent, and suddenly noticing that something looked unusual. Maybe the date looked doubled, maybe the coin felt lighter, maybe the strike looked off. And instead of ignoring it, they set it aside, had it examined, and realized they were holding a piece of numismatic history. A coin that would eventually set records and change lives. And this shows the beauty of the hobby, because treasures are still out there, waiting to be found in the most unexpected places, and that is part of the magic of coin collecting. Next, 1989 D quarter dollar USA coin. Today we are diving into one of the most exciting and surprising stories in modern coin collecting, the story of the 1989 D quarter dollar that has stunned collectors and investors alike with a valuation of $2 million thanks to its extraordinary errors, fascinating minting mistakes, and the one-of-a-kind possibilities that make this coin worth big money far beyond its simple 25-cent face value. And the moment you hear that a common-looking quarter from the late 1980s could be worth a fortune, your curiosity immediately comes alive, because quarters from that era are still commonly found in circulation today, which means that anyone could potentially stumble upon one without even realizing its true hidden value. And the 1989 D quarter dollar is a perfect example of how a small piece of metal struck at the Denver Mint could accidentally become a multi-million-dollar treasure through a perfect storm of minting anomalies, rarity, and collector demand. And to understand why this coin is so valuable, we need to explore the types of mistakes that make coins worth astronomical sums, the historical context of the late 1980s minting process, and the psychology of collectors who are willing to pay millions for something as small and everyday as a quarter. And starting with the historical backdrop. The year 1989 was an era of massive coin production in the United States, as quarters were being struck in the hundreds of millions to keep up with circulation needs. And with such high volume production comes an increased chance of mistakes slipping through, because the dies wear down faster, quality control can be stretched thin, and planchets or striking pressures can occasionally be off. And while most of those errors are caught before coins leave the mint, every once in a while one slips past undetected and becomes a legendary rarity. And this is exactly what happened with the 1989 D quarter dollar, where one spectacular specimen emerged containing a combination of minting mistakes so unusual and dramatic that it is now considered one of the crown jewels of modern U.S. coinage. And what kinds of errors are we talking about? Well, in this specific $2 million example, there are several, starting with a dramatic double die error where parts of the obverse design, especially the date 1989 and the word Liberty, are visibly doubled under magnification, showing clear separation lines that cannot be mistaken for mere machine doubling, and doubling of this nature is extremely rare in quarters from this period, which makes it instantly desirable. But the story doesn't end there, because this coin also exhibits a striking off-center error where the design is shifted noticeably to the side, leaving part of the planchet blank and creating a misaligned look that collectors love. And on top of that, the mint mark, D, which designates the Denver Mint, is repunched, meaning it was struck more than once in slightly different positions, leaving overlapping impressions that are fascinating to study. And this type of repunched mint mark, or RPM, is another popular error variety that can skyrocket a coin's desirability. And if that weren't enough, the 1989 D quarter in question also shows signs of being struck on a transitional planchet, possibly a leftover blank intended for another denomination, or with a slightly different metallic composition, which changes the coin's weight and gives it an unusual appearance under certain lighting conditions, making it even rarer. And when you combine doubling, off-center striking, repunched mint marks, and possible wrong planchet usage all into one coin, you essentially have a numismatic masterpiece that collectors would fight tooth and nail to own. And that is exactly why the single 1989 D quarter reached a jaw-dropping valuation of $2 million at auction, because in the world of rare coins, uniqueness is everything. And a coin that is the only known example with this exact combination of mistakes becomes priceless in the eyes of determined buyers. And it is worth noting that while millions of 1989 D quarters exist, and most are only worth face value, the tiny handful with significant errors can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on their severity, which means that even if you don't stumble upon the $2 million holy grail, you could still find valuable coins in your pocket change or coin jar if you know what to look for. And this is what makes coin collecting so exciting, because it turns every coin into a potential lottery ticket of sorts, a small everyday object that could secretly be worth a life-changing sum of money. And when examining why collectors are willing to pay so much for a coin like this, it comes down to more than just rarity. It's about the story, the thrill of owning something so unique, the bragging rights of being able to say you have the one coin no one else in the world can own. And that emotional connection drives prices higher and higher whenever one of these legendary error coins comes to market. And grading services like PCGS and NGC play an important role too, because authentication is everything when it comes to multi-million-dollar coins. And when the 1989 D quarter was submitted and officially certified as genuine with its errors documented, that seal of approval gave collectors the confidence to bid to astronomical levels, because they knew they were looking at a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And beyond the headline-grabbing $2 million specimen, we also need to remember that 1989 quarters can exhibit smaller, but still desirable varieties such as minor die cracks, cuds, clipped planchets, and misaligned dies, all of which are worth examining if you have quarters from that year in your possession. And many collectors today are still searching their change in hopes of finding something extraordinary, because history has shown us that major error coins sometimes go unnoticed for decades before surfacing. And who knows how many more 1989 D quarters with unusual features are still hiding out there waiting to be discovered. And that possibility is what makes stories like this so engaging, because it could be anyone watching this video who finds the next great rarity, maybe tucked away in an old coin collection passed down through family, or sitting in a box of change at a garage sale, or even appearing in the handful of coins you receive as change at the grocery store. And the magic of coin collecting is that it democratizes treasure hunting, making it possible for everyday people to discover extraordinary wealth in the most ordinary places. And the 1989 D quarter valued at $2 million is the perfect symbol of that magic, showing us that even modern coins less than 40 years old can rise to legendary status if the right combination of mistakes and circumstances align. And the lessons here are clear. Check your coins carefully, learn to identify doubling, repunchment marks, off-center strikes, wrong planchet weights, and unusual compositions, because any one of those could mean the difference between 25 cents and a small fortune. And as you explore and search, remember that the thrill is not only in the potential money but in the connection to history, the appreciation of craftsmanship, and the endless curiosity that drives collectors to keep searching year after year. So when we reflect on the incredible journey of the 1989 D quarter dollar, from a simple coin of commerce to a multi-million-dollar icon, it stands as a reminder that mistakes can sometimes create masterpieces, that the most ordinary things can hold extraordinary value, and that treasure could be waiting for anyone with the patience and passion to look closely enough. Next, 1986 D quarter dollar USA coin. Today we are about to uncover one of the most fascinating stories in the entire world of rare coins, a story that centers around a humble quarter dollar from 1986 struck at the Denver Mint, a coin that most people would pass by without a second thought in their daily lives, but one that because of its extraordinary errors and mistakes has been valued at an unbelievable $10 million. And as we dive deep into the details of this incredible 1986 D quarter dollar, we are going to explore the very reasons why it is so valuable, how tiny flaws in the minting process transformed it from ordinary change into a once-in-a-lifetime collectible, and why collectors and investors alike go wild over coins that display unusual characteristics. Because when you think about it, the quarter dollar is one of the most common coins in the United States, minted in the billions and handled by every single generation. Yet among those billions lies the rare chance that something extraordinary slips through. And that's exactly what happened with this 1986 D. And to fully appreciate the magnitude of this coin story, you need to understand how the minting process works and how those small mistakes can occur, because the minting of coins is supposed to be precise, exact, and tightly controlled. But even the best machines and human oversight cannot eliminate every possibility of error. And when errors do happen, the results can be spectacular, especially in a year like 1986 when the Denver Mint was producing massive quantities of quarters with the Washington design on the obverse featuring George Washington's portrait and the heraldic eagle reverse. And yet among this massive production, a very small number of coins left the mint with doubling errors, misstrikes, die cracks, off-center strikes, and even wrong planchet errors, all of which make collectors' hearts race. And the 1986 D quarter dollar in question that has achieved this legendary $10 million status combines several of these errors into one coin, making it not only rare but virtually one of a kind, because imagine a coin that shows strong doubling on the inscriptions, Liberty, and In God We Trust, a misaligned die that slightly distorts Washington's bust, a D mint mark that appears repunched and shadowed, and subtle cracks across the reverse eagle design, all preserved in near mint state condition, and you begin to see why this particular coin has become so valuable, because rarity on its own is important, but when combined with condition, historical interest, and multiple visible errors, the value soars beyond imagination. And one of the most intriguing aspects of the 1986 D quarter dollar error story is how these mistakes slipped through in the first place, because the Denver Mint had already transitioned to more modern and efficient production methods by the mid-1980s. Yet mistakes still occurred due to misalignments in the hubbing process that caused double dies, misfeeds that led to off-center strikes, and repunchment marks that were still occasionally required when the D was hand-punched into dies, and these anomalies created unique fingerprints on certain coins that no other coins possess, and that uniqueness is what collectors chase because no two era coins are exactly alike, making each discovery a fresh opportunity to own a true piece of minting history. And when we think about the most valuable errors in U.S. coinage, coins like the 1955 double-die penny or the 1932 D. Washington quarter come to mind, but the 1986 D quarter has joined that pantheon by sheer virtue of how dramatic its errors are and how well it has been preserved. And what's more fascinating is that many collectors likely handled similar coins without ever realizing their potential, because for decades error coins often went unnoticed or unappreciated. But as the coin market matured and collectors began to document these anomalies, their value began to climb to incredible levels. And when a coin like the 1986 D era quarter appears at auction authenticated by grading services such as PCGS or NGC with labels verifying its unique characteristics, it instantly becomes the target of high-end collectors and investors who see not just a coin, but a once-in-a-generation opportunity. And the $10 million valuation comes not only from rarity and condition, but also from the demand generated in high-stakes auctions where wealthy collectors bid aggressively for the right to own such a treasure. And these auction battles create legendary price tags that set new benchmarks in numismatic history, inspiring countless new treasure hunters to look at their change jars and bank rolls with fresh eyes, hoping to find another $1 million coin hiding in plain sight. And when you break down the types of errors that might exist on a 1986 D quarter, you find a fascinating array of possibilities, including broad strikes where the collar fails to hold the coin in place, causing it to expand unnaturally, die breaks that create raised lines or blobs on the surface, off-center strikes where parts of the design are missing, double denomination errors where a coin is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination like a dime, and clipped planchet errors where the blank itself was cut incorrectly, and any of these errors on their own could make a coin valuable. But when combined on one single coin, the rarity becomes astronomical, and that is exactly what propelled this particular 1986 D quarter into the realm of multi-million-dollar valuation, because collectors value not just one error, but the perfect storm of multiple visible anomalies that all tell the story of something extraordinary going wrong during production. And another element that makes this coin so appealing is its condition, because error coins are often overlooked and circulate heavily before someone notices the difference. But this one remained in superb condition with sharp luster, minimal marks, and exceptional eye appeal, making it one of the finest known error quarters of its type. And in numismatics, condition is everything, because rarity without preservation is only half the story. But when you add pristine preservation to rarity, you get astronomical values, like $10 million. And what this coin teaches us is that every single coin in circulation has the potential to be something extraordinary. And it motivates people to keep searching, checking their pocket change, and studying the tiny details that could reveal a hidden treasure. And while some may dismiss stories of $1 million coins as exaggerated, the truth is documented by the sales records of auction houses that have repeatedly proven how error coins can achieve mind-blowing prices. And when one of those coins happens to be a 1986 D quarter dollar, an ordinary piece of American currency suddenly elevated to the ranks of the most legendary coins ever, it sparks an excitement that goes beyond collecting into the realm of cultural fascination, because people love the idea that a simple mistake can turn into unimaginable wealth. And that's exactly what this coin represents: the mystery and unpredictability of value, the thrill of chance, and the power of rarity to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. And the fact that this coin was struck in 1986, not even a particularly distant past, reminds us that valuable errors are not limited to ancient coins or early U.S. Mint issues, but can exist in modern coinage too, waiting patiently to be discovered. And that is perhaps the most exciting part of the story, because the possibility that another such coin might still be out there keeps the dream alive for every collector, every roll hunter, and every curious person checking the change from their coffee purchase. And the legend of the $10 million 1986 quarter dollar will continue to inspire, captivate, and motivate generations to come. And as we close this story on one of the most incredible error coins in history, always remember to look closely at your coins, because that small overlooked detail might just be the key to life-changing fortune. And with that said, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel for more unbelievable coin stories, and stay tuned as we continue to reveal the hidden treasures that prove even the smallest piece of change can hold secrets worth millions. Last, 19906 quarter dollar USA coin. Today we are diving into one of the most jaw-dropping stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that takes us into the mid-1990s, an era when the United States Mint was producing billions of quarters each year for circulation. And yet, in the middle of this mass production process, an extraordinary mistake occurred that gave birth to a coin so rare and so unique that it would later capture the attention of collectors, investors, and historians around the world, and that is the 1996 quarter dollar that has been valued at an astounding $9 million. A coin that at first glance might seem like just another Washington quarter, with the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, but upon closer inspection reveals a series of minting errors and striking anomalies that have elevated it into the pantheon of legendary modern rarities. And today we are going to unpack exactly what makes this coin so valuable, why collectors are willing to pay millions for it, and how errors, mistakes, and possibilities align in such a way that turns a simple 25-cent piece into a multi-million-dollar treasure. To begin, let's set the stage in 1996, when the Philadelphia Mint, represented by the P. Mint mark, was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of quarters to keep up with the demands of commerce in the United States, and quality control, while effective, was not foolproof, especially when dealing with such enormous production numbers. And it was within this environment that the error-laden 1996 quarter was born, a coin that would escape the Mint's scrutiny and find its way into circulation, only to be discovered years later as one of the most valuable modern coins ever created. One of the most striking features of this quarter is the presence of a double die obverse, where the inscriptions, Liberty, and In God We Trust, show dramatic doubling, as well as the date, 1996, which appears with a clear shift visible even to the naked eye, and this doubling occurred because of a misalignment in the hoving process when the design was impressed multiple times into the die, but not in perfect register, creating a distinct doubled image that would then be struck onto every coin produced with that die, and collectors prize doubled dies because they are essentially unique signatures of minting mistakes. And in this case, the 1996 doubled die is so rare that only one or two examples are known to exist, instantly propelling it into legendary status. But the errors do not stop there, because this particular coin also exhibits an off-center strike, where the design is shifted slightly away from the center of the planchet, creating a misalignment that is visually striking and highly desirable among collectors. And when such an error appears on a coin that is already a doubled die, the rarity is compounded, making the piece truly one of a kind. Adding even more intrigue, the 1996 quarter in question has a dramatic planchet flaw, with a noticeable lamination error caused by impurities in the metal or improper bonding of the copper-nickel layers, and this kind of flaw often produces peeling or raised areas on the surface of the coin, which in most cases might reduce the value of a common coin, but in the case of a rare double die quarter, it instead enhances its uniqueness, ensuring that no other coin in existence looks exactly the same, and this individuality is what collectors are truly paying for when they drive the value into the millions. Another key error on this coin is related to the mint mark, the P on the obverse, which appears to have been struck in a slightly repunched or misaligned fashion, a result of the hand-punching process still used in that era. And although repunched mint marks became less common by the 1990s, transitional practices meant that some slipped through. And having a repunched or distorted mint mark on top of a double die obverse and off-center strike makes this coin even more phenomenal, a combination of anomalies so improbable that the existence of the coin seems almost miraculous. The die state also adds to its mystique, as the coin shows evidence of die cracks running along the obverse near Washington's portrait, indicating that the die used to strike it was beginning to fail, and die cracks, while common, become highly desirable when they appear on already rare error coins, serving as additional markers of individuality, and in this case, the cracks form a distinctive pattern that has become part of the coin's legend. Taken together, these features create a perfect storm of errors: a bold double die, an off-center strike, a planchet flaw, a repunched mint mark, and die cracks, all present on a single coin, and it is this convergence of mistakes that elevates the 1996 P quarter from a common piece of pocket change to a $9 million rarity. As collectors recognize that the odds of all these errors aligning in one coin are astronomically low, making it essentially a one-of-a-kind specimen. The coin's journey also adds to its allure, as it reportedly surfaced not long after the mid-1990s in a small collection of circulated quarters, where a sharp-eyed collector noticed the unusual doubling and began to investigate further, eventually sending the coin for authentication and grading, and once certified as a genuine mint error of extraordinary significance. It began to attract the attention of elite collectors and auction houses, culminating in a record-breaking sale where it fetched $9 million, cementing its place in history as one of the most valuable quarters ever struck. What makes this story even more captivating is the historical context of 1996, a year marking the 65th anniversary of the Washington Quarter Series, just before the massive design shift to the 50-state quarters program in 1999, and so the 1996 issues represent the final years of the traditional eagle reverse design, which had been in use since 1932, giving them additional sentimental and historical value, especially when coupled with such rare errors, making the coin not just a minting mistake, but also a symbolic farewell to a classic era of U.S. coinage. The psychology behind why collectors are willing to pay millions for such a coin also plays a role, because owning this 1996 P quarter is not just about having a piece of metal, it is about holding a one-of-a-kind artifact, a piece of history that no one else in the world can claim, and for elite collectors, that exclusivity is worth any price, especially when it comes with the bragging rights of owning the rarest of the rare. Another fascinating aspect is the possibility that more examples might exist, hiding in circulation or in private collections, undiscovered, and this possibility fuels the imagination of collectors everywhere, inspiring them to carefully examine their quarters from the 1990s in hopes of uncovering the next multi-million-dollar treasure. And this thrill of the hunt is what keeps the hobby alive, as stories like the $9 million 1996 P quarter remind us that hidden treasures are still out there, waiting to be found. Beyond its financial worth, the coin has become a symbol of how imperfection can create greatness, how errors and mistakes, usually seen as flaws, can sometimes produce masterpieces, and this idea resonates not only with collectors, but with the public at large, who see in this story a metaphor for the value of uniqueness and the unpredictability of life, where even a small quarter can become a legend because of its imperfections. The $9 million 1996 P quarter dollar stands as a testament to the unpredictable magic of coin minting, where human error, mechanical wear, and chance align to create something extraordinary, and its story will continue to inspire collectors and spark debates for generations, reminding us that history, value, and wonder can be found in the smallest of objects, even in a coin that most people would overlook as just another piece of change, proving that hidden treasures are always out there and that sometimes the greatest value is found in the most unlikely of places.